Macoy Mark Murdoch was born on February 16th, 2022. And this is his story.
So it all started on Saturday, February 12th. We had just gone hiking and it was really awesome. And I felt like my water was leaking a little bit. I was 38 weeks exactly. And I know that it can happen a lot at this point where, women pee their pants. So I was kind of skeptical, but I was pretty certain that my water was leaking. Felt like I could definitely tell the difference between the two. I tried to convince Carson, but he was not way convinced. So we kind of just went about that day, and I felt like it just kept happening more and more, and then led to later that night.
Later that night, we were gonna go on a date to Wingers. It's delicious. What? That's where we're going.
I know.
Anyway, we got there and got right in and got our favorite table. That was great. But immediately received a phone call from my mother, who was a oh my gosh. Received a phone call from my mother, who was a bit distracted. No, distraught. I'm trying to say distraught. Received a phone call from my mother, who was a bit distraught. Never heard her voice like that before. She let us know that my father had just had symptoms of a stroke. They were at their state conference and he just stopped responding normally. So we got up and I ran out of there and Brittany caught up later, and as we zoomed over to the hospital, we beat everyone there, including the ambulance, and just kind of got nerve-wracking, waiting, and then finally got the update that he had shown up. My mom walked through and in and said that he started to respond again, and that they were going to start doing some tests and do some medication. So then I went back there to kind of figure out what was going on.
Yeah, and at this point, I was still actually kind of having more symptoms. I started contracting more, but wasn't for sure if it was really from the stress of, the current situation, what was happening. Obviously, it was a really scary night, and we were more just focused on Carson's dad and his safety, of what was going to happen with that. And Carson got to spend quite a bit of time with him as he became more responsive and was able to talk to him quite a bit.
Yeah, he was making jokes like normal. He seemed like we had caught it, within the first hour, all the things they say about strokes. But he seemed like he was going to make an okay recovery. So I then left, went out, saw Brittany, and it's crazy because while she was sitting there, another lady came in who was struggling with the pregnancy. And so here I am. My father is, in critical condition, so to say. My wife is 38 weeks. I don't know which one to be more worried about of, the future, the near future. And so we decided to go get some food and eat away our stresses later that night. And then as the weekend progressed, my father's health decreased drastically the next day. Wait, I skipped a part of the whole night day. Screw that. So we decided to get some food and then go back to the hospital.
Well, when we were there, that's when I was like, felt a lot of liquid again. Remember, I like went to the bathroom and I was like, dude, I swear that this is not pee. Like, I know the difference. Like, I know that I'm leaking. So then it was kind of on our minds again.
Yeah, so then we were worried about the fluid again, and we didn't know what to do, but we hadn't eaten still. So now it was like 10 or 11, 12 o'clock. I can't remember. It was late. So then we got food. It was an important part of my night. And then we came back to the hospital. Things were looking pretty good for my dad. So we thought, okay, but Brittany was really stressed. So we decided to go over to the clinic for her, just across the building, and find out if there was any complications going on.
Yeah. So I think we got there at like 11 p.m. I went home and got our hospital bags while Carson's with his dad, just in case. Got in there, they ran some tests. I think they ran 3 different tests. And then like one was, or no, it was like half were negative and half were positive. And so it was just like really confusing whether or not it was leaking or it's just who knows what. And so then they ran a final test and we had to wait another hour for that. And so I think we didn't end up leaving the hospital till like 2 a.m. And at that point, the tests were still, didn't really tell us anything. Again, like 2 were negative, 2 were positive. So we were really happy. We didn't want to be in the hospital that night. We were so exhausted from the day. We still didn't know what was going to happen with Carson's dad. So any other day we would have been like sad to be sent home, but we were very grateful to be able to go home that night.
Yeah, we had fallen asleep. Well, I had fallen asleep multiple times on the bed, been woken up by alarms, then fell asleep on the chairs and fell asleep everywhere. Nurses woke me up, and anyway, it was a wild night. But yeah, then we moved into Sunday, a little less calm for Brittany, a little more crazy for my dad. He kind of had a bad reaction to something. We still don't really know what, but he just started to decline. They said his blood clot was supposed to go away with the medication that they gave, but it didn't. It just disintegrated into smaller clots and ended up causing more minor strokes, but more of them, so that it just kind of deteriorated his health quickly. He reverted back to the original symptoms and just wasn't, they would check him on the half hour, 50 minutes, and he just wasn't bouncing back like he did the first time. So it started to look pretty bleak on Sunday afternoon. So that's when we called my sister from her mission, got her home. My brother from up north in Utah decided to drive down the night before, so he was already there and was spending time, and the rest of us were already in town. So we got to spend that afternoon with him, and then Monday it was really bad. He was non-responsive for the most part, and then my mother made the hard decision with the help of us, but really it came down to her to bring him home and have him on hospice to kind of keep him comfortable for the last however long he had remaining. They said a couple of days, but we could tell that it wasn't going to be very long. So luckily my sister had gotten home at that point, and was able to be with him while he was still a little bit awake and responsive to the touch, not so much vocal or verbal anymore. But we all spent the night together at my parents' house, telling stories, having jokes, just remembering the best times that we had, and just kind of trying to come to terms with the fact that we were going to lose our dad, either that night or that week, but we knew it was coming.
Yeah, it was a hard pill to swallow for sure. But it was really cool to watch, especially Carson and all of his siblings and his mom just like talk about just all their fun memories. And I know that his dad was definitely there listening. And I feel like we kind of got to the point where it felt like his spirit had either left already or was kind of just coming and going. Didn't necessarily feel like he was there, wouldn't you say? He kind of had gone, which was nice, knowing that he wasn't really there suffering. But with that being said, there was a moment, it's probably 1 a.m. at this point. Carson's dad got brought home around 4 p.m. and we didn't leave his side. And I was just sitting there on the stairs, and all of a sudden I just felt a huge kick in my stomach from the baby, and he was very, very active baby, and as soon as he kicked me, I was like, oh my gosh, like I haven't felt him for a long time. And immediately after that, I heard a really strong, distinct voice that said, he just said, I'm back and I'm gonna meet you soon. And I knew in that moment that he'd be coming early. And not only that, but I know that Carson's dad and him had that talk that they needed to have. I know that that's where he was, and that's why I heard that voice so strong.
So she had felt that, and I don't feel like I remember her telling me. I mean, I remember her telling me she felt something like that, but not the full extent. So that was 1 a.m. Tuesday morning, right? Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Tuesday morning. 4 p.m. Tuesday afternoon. We had our regular doctor's appointment.
Yes, yeah, your dad passed.
So I thought you said that.
Do you want me to?
No, I got it. So yeah, after she felt the kick and it kind of had that little revelation, it was shortly after that. My dad actually passed, even though we had felt that he was already gone, just by the way that his body was. He passed around 2 o'clock, and we were all there by his side. We were there to have the morticians come and take him to his resting place, I guess. And yeah, we were left to kind of come to terms with everything that night. It had happened so quickly that it wasn't really hitting any of us. We were all together, family was near, and we felt like it wasn't real. And then fast forward to the next day, where we're still trying to contemplate what had actually happened the night before. We have to go to our regular doctor's appointment to check on baby, check on our son that's hopefully doing good. And that was at 4 p.m. on Tuesday, it was the same day, but the next afternoon.
Yeah, we went into the doctor at like 12. And yeah, we honestly thought that we were just gonna get checked. She didn't tell us how, far we were. At this point, up to this point, I was dilated to a 3 already. It was like 80% of face, around there. So my body was progressing pretty fast already, which was really nice. And we didn't really expect too much change. We were still curious about the leaking and stuff, and so that was kind of the first comment she made. I hadn't really progressed any further. She's like, I heard that you went in. Let's check you. For whatever reason, those tests that day were the same. Half positive, half negative. And so she's like, let's just get an ultrasound and make sure that the water is at, I shouldn't say water, the amniotic fluid is at a good point, like that the baby's still good. So we went and did the ultrasound, and there's like, the amniotic fluid was like 0.2 points above where it's supposed to be at. And so she just says, this is silly, like, it's obviously something's going on. You're full term at this point. Like, let's just get you induced, and let's get you induced like right now. We were both just like looked at each other like, huh? Like, we had probably slept, I don't know, maybe 8 hours altogether the last 3 nights before this, and we were exhausted to say the least. We were very excited to hear that, but also it was really overwhelming because, like Carson said, his dad's passing literally happened that same day.
But we did it. We came home after that, kind of told him, hey, we don't want to do this today. If there's a way to kind of slow this process, we don't want to have it happen on this day particularly. And they understood the situation, so they told us we could come in a little later. So then that's when we went in at 4. And well, we came home and kind of messed with my family a little bit before then. They were like, how was the appointment? And we're like, oh, it was great, pretty routine, yada yada, didn't really give them too much. And then as it approached 4 o'clock, they were like kind of still asking questions. And then we're like, yeah, we're going in. And they're like, what do you mean you're going in? You just went. Yeah, we're going to go have a baby. So it was pretty kind of fun. It was exciting, but also just a whirlwind of emotions that there's no way to even describe the amount of feeling but not feeling that took place because it was so overwhelming. So we get everything packed, get loaded up, and head down there. And they got us into a room rather quickly, and Brittany got all hooked up to her machines very quickly, and too quickly to the point where I had to let them know again that, hey, like,
we really don't want this to happen.
I know this could happen in the next few hours, and I'd really prefer it not happen today. So once again, the nurses were great and they understood, and so they kind of slowed the Pitocin drip so that it would not proceed, rapidly, and it would be sure to be the next day before we ended up having a little baby.
Yeah, so that kind of sucks for me because obviously if you know anything about Pitocin, all it really does is just make your body contract very hard, very fast. Even the nurse said, like, she's like, I hate Pitocin because it just makes things slow down so much and just sucks for the moms. But so I feel like my contractions started getting pretty intense pretty quick, but like nothing that I couldn't handle for a while until I think 8 o'clock. Around 8, our doctor came in, checked me. I think that was the first time I had been checked and I hadn't really progressed. And then she broke my water. And after she broke my water, the back pain just got like insane. Like the stomach contractions, those hurt really bad, but the back pain was just crazy. So around 10 p.m. I ended up getting the epidural, and that was awesome. I was honestly terrified. I just heard stories of how the needle's 10 feet long, but it was really good. The guy did a really good job, and I didn't really feel it. So that was a blessing. Got the epidural. The pain started to simmer down, and I started to get a lot more comfortable. And then the night kind of just progressed on. It honestly went by so fast. Carson and I were both just like, every hour I passed, we're like, holy crap. Like another hour, like it just, we weren't doing anything. We were just watching the Olympics.
Yeah, I had a steak and a Dr. Pepper, and I was feeling great. And I just kept bouncing back and forth, seeing the clock turn hour by hour, and Brittany just shift positions with her big bouncy ball they gave her, and it was just kind of, 4, she's at a 5, she's at a 6, and then just kind of delirium. Really, it was so I've been exhausted emotionally and physically the previous days that I couldn't really take any of that in until they had said she was at a 10, and that was around 6.
No, it was like
5 or 6 in the morning, debatable. And then they're like, "Okay, they're at a 10, but he's not dropped all the way yet, so we're gonna just let him kind of come down on his own," which was a huge blessing.
Huge blessing.
But
I also got really sick. That was another thing.
Yeah, she started shaking.
Probably like
fever.
A few hours before that. I got the chills. I was just shaking so bad and so uncomfortable. They gave me the peanut, and I was using that just throughout the night, kind of going back and forth. And then I started throwing up because I got really nauseous for a little bit. And then they gave me something for that, and I feel like that was like right before I hit the 10. And then I think I was at a 10 for like 2 or 3 hours, just letting him come down as far as he can. And I think it's around like 7 something that they came in and checked me, and they're like, all right, he's right there, like it's time to push.
But before that, in the night, when we were kind of getting stressed about everything, the shift change was at 6, so we were in there before 6. They were great. The night nurse, there was just one of her. She was alone. Anyway, she had came and talked to us and knew our situation and what had happened the previous day, and she just had mentioned that the couple next to us, the room next to us, had just kind of basically seen an angel in their room, and shared that with the nurse, and then the nurse felt inclined to share that with us, just to remind us that, hey, there are people on the other side looking out for you and watching over you, and that was all too true at that point. So it was just one of those things that kind of helped us get along, especially getting close to the actual birthing. And then, like she said, as she progressed and as the baby started to come down at 6 o'clock in the morning, the new shift change happened and new nurses. And the first nurse came in, and her name was Brittany. So that was fun to have 2 Brittany's in the house and just have a little bit of just kind of familiarity. And then it was weird because she said, hey, we have a new nursing student who's just going to observe today because he's doing the rounds and is going to see a birth. And she's like, his name's Mark. Is it okay if he joins us? And so it was crazy because that was my father's name. And so we got Brittany and Mark there to help welcome little baby boy into the world. And just another one of those things, one of those tender mercies that we feel our Father in heaven kind of sent to us to just remind us that, hey, I got this. I'm watching over you. So at that point, despite it being close to the big point, it felt rather calming.
Yeah, I agree. I think, just to kind of backtrack a little, one of the craziest things, because everyone that I tell, like, yeah, half our results were positive that my fluid was leaking on Saturday, and they just sent us home. Like, they didn't seem concerned about it, which, like, I thought was weird. Everyone else was like, are you kidding? Like, any chance of infection, like, you're getting induced right there, then and there. But it really was a blessing. Carson and I have talked about this a lot, because if the baby would have come that night, at this point, Carson's dad wasn't, talking or anything. Like, he could grab our hands. That's really about it. And we just look back at that thinking, like, wow, what a miracle that they didn't keep us that night, because they didn't, and because I was, protected, and our little baby got to wait till after, Mark passed, that they definitely got to meet on the other side. And we know that he came early because Mark sent him, but we know that
we needed him.
Yeah. But we know that it's so cool, because I'm like, I know that they were able to have conversations. Mark was able to prepare him to come down to us when he, when I felt that feeling of like, hey, I'm back, like, I'm ready to do this. I'm like, gosh dang, Mark, like, I know you just gave him all the advice, good and bad, of how to deal with his father, and, all the good things. But that in itself was just such a miracle that we didn't get induced that night. But back to the story. So it was around 8 a.m. I started pushing, and our doctor found out that he was faced up, and they're supposed to be face down. Their head's supposed to be face down when they come out, which can make it complicated to deliver. Not necessarily scary, it's just usually a lot harder to push him out. But luckily, since like I had let him drop low enough and all of that, I don't know how many times I pushed, but it took 19 minutes.
Yeah.
Which I thought was awesome. And honestly, that epidural, I didn't feel a thing, and it was amazing, and it was like just so enjoyable. Carson was literally so great. I didn't think he'd want to see a thing and would be so freaked out by it, but he was like so into it and was like, this is awesome, and was just so supportive, which honestly was just so lucky for me to be able to have that support. Because again, we were so exhausted. I think I'd probably slept 5 minutes that whole night. So to say the least, we were very tired going into this. But yeah, so he came out, cried instantly, which is again just really lucky. That's always such a relief to hear that, little cry came out. Was just so perfect and so little, and he was just healthy as can be, which again is so lucky, being 2 weeks early. And just another thing that we're like, God knew we needed him, Mark knew we needed him, and not only sent him here early, but sent us him healthy, which overall was the biggest blessing, I think.
Yeah. So 6 pounds, 12 ounces, just as cute as ever, full head of hair, blonde, weird. I know she looks blonde right now, but
I know, I was like, whose child is this? I have black hair.
And I had brownish hair, if I had any. Anyway, he was a cute little bugger and just wanted to be held and loved, and opened his eyes almost immediately and just looked up at us, and just wanted to be there. I think he knew more than we knew that he needed to be there, and it just kind of comforted us. So while everyone else was dealing with a major struggle, a major pain, now here we are with the biggest blessing, our firstborn son, and that was a weird position to be in, to be so happy in the midst of something that's so sad, and to be able to go kind of snap back and forth from tears of joy to literal just heartbreaking tears. It's kind of an intense roller coaster in I mean, that was in the morning, so not until the next night did either of us really get any sleep. Brittany didn't get sleep for a few more days, but I definitely took my opportunity despite the many nurses trying to wake me up and do checks on my little baby and poke his heels and all kinds of little things like that.
I just think that we're so lucky because, like he said, like even though it was literally the saddest time of our lives, especially Carson's life, you know, something you never expect to happen. There was just so many miracles that we can't deny that his dad was not a part of it.
I love grammar.
But yeah, it was just, I guess a really important detail that we didn't say. So we decided Macoy's first name pretty early on after we found out he was a boy, and we could not decide a middle name for the life of us. Like, very important to me was that it was a family name and had meaning of some sort, and I just wanted that really bad. But like we went through, oh my gosh, I can't even tell you how many times we looked at like family tree and just all of the names in our families, and we just couldn't think of any names. We thought of a lot of names that we liked, but they didn't have any meaning, and it was like, oh yeah, that sounds really good, but you know, why would we do that? Carson tried to convince me on a few, but didn't let it slide. We finally decided on one name. We just committed to it. Ended up not even being a family name, but it was a name that Carson has always loved, and it did have some meaning to us. And we still weren't convinced though. To the point that I made the letter board with his name on it to take pictures at the hospital, and I had put the name on there and all that stuff, but then I packed the extra letters because I just, in like the gut of my stomach was just like, it just doesn't feel right. And like, what if we just want to switch it? What if there's a reason that we want to switch it? And it's so crazy looking back now. Like, of course we never felt content with a name because God knew all along, you know, that his middle name was going to be Mark. God knew all along that, you know, this timing was going to happen how it did. But again, that was just such a miracle and such a blessing that he gets his grandpa's name. I, you know, couldn't think of anyone better for him to be named after, because he really was just the greatest man.
So here we are today, pressing on. Got a little baby boy who's growing and becoming, you know, everything we'd hoped, and hopefully can carry on the light that we needed at that time, and be a good representation of what he means to a lot of people, us included, and us especially. So yeah, we just wanted to share that story.
We did.
Because just was one of those things that you can't really glance over. It's one of those stories where you kind of have to know the details to really understand just how perfect and how intense everything was. But we are indeed grateful for, you know, my dad and now our son.